don't get discouraged with failure, right? Uh, my mentor always says that you have to try 5 things to find the one thing that works. Coach, the word coach is quite overused, and there are a lot of coaches out there, and they all serve a purpose. But I wanted to differentiate myself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Success Stories Season 2, a talk show presented by Trident Communication in association with World Humanitarian Foundation. I'm Sneha, your host for today, and our guest for today's talk show is Mr. Dhiren Harchandani. Dhiren, he is an entrepreneur, an author, an endurance athlete, and a transformation architect. So let's begin to hear his success story. Hello, Dhiren, and very warm welcome to our show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Dhiren, we know you as a consultant, and you started your career as a consultant, and now you're an entrepreneur. So how was this journey from a consultant to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of background. So I was a successful in the traditional definition of success. I founded multiple businesses in several verticals. I had material wealth that I wanted. I had the sports cars, the luxury watches, the house on the golf course. I was self-made. I checked all the right boxes, but I realized that no matter how much I had, I was chasing for more, right? I made several decisions along the way that cost me very dearly, a price that I'm still paying till this day. And although that decision got me more success on the outside, it left me feeling very empty. So the more I chased, and the less fulfilled I felt, right? So I entered partnerships in businesses purely driven by financial gain. And in the process, those relationships suffered, right? So reality really hit me hard when I missed the birth of my son. I decided to get on a plane to chase a business deal instead of being with my wife, who was 9 months pregnant at that point. And the final coffin or the final nail on the coffin was when my health started to really break down. I almost worked myself to, I would say, death, right? So the weight of self-doubt and questioning my self-worth was really sabotaging my success. So I started searching. And in my journey, I discovered that there has been a wave of all forms of motivation, from speakers, courses, workshops, books. I should know because I co-authored a book on motivation. So I also discovered that none of these changes, none, were long lasting. So I inevitably reverted back to my old patterns of habitual behavior. So I was trapped in this habitual loop, right? And it was only when I discovered the system to transformation, which is all about the inner game. And as an entrepreneur, the inner game is really it's the only sustainable competitive advantage that we have, right? So I started working on mastering the inner game. And as a transformation architect, I basically help plan, design, and execute inner game mastery. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. But going back to your question, I think your question was how I got started as a consultant, right? So I started my career in 1999. It was really a fascinating time in technology history. If you remember, businesses were panicking over the do you remember, Sneha, do you remember the Y2K problem?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, I remember, yeah. Though not much in my memory, but yes, I do remember because that was the time we were teenage, like.
Exactly. Yeah, it was called the millennium bug. So
millennium.
Around the last decade of the 20th century, there was a sudden realization that equipment with date-related functions might not be able to roll over to year 2000. So a lot of software dependent relied, actually, I should say, on 2-digit year codes. So for the first time, there would be a 4-digit rollover. So this problem was referred to as Y2K. Anyway, so there were pundits that were suggesting that financial infrastructure would be disrupted. There were predictions that utility grids around the world would shut down, right? So societies around the world would be, or expected to be adversely affected by this transition. So I had front row seats as a technology consultant with the Y2K drama, and it taught me a lot of lessons. And then around the same time, shortly after the millennium, the dot-com bubble started to form.
Yeah, dot-com started in that 2000 year.
Exactly. A year before I graduated. So it was a fascinating time to be in the Silicon Valley. I was the heart of it. And I was very lucky to be there at the beginning of my career. I was consulting for these iconic companies that were, in the Fortune 500. And on the other end of the spectrum, I was a consultant, or I would be brought in as a consultant for small startups where I would be in a table with the founders, right? And it was really interesting to be a consultant at that time, because I was being brought in to solve, as a consultant, you're brought in to solve a problem, right? Which really developed me to really think about, problem solving on another level, right? Because the pressure when you're brought in to solve a problem, right, is quite high. So I learned how to deal with pressure at a very early phase in my career.
So that was your initial journey when you started. And now you told us that you are a transformation architect. So this word is very new to us. So can you please elaborate about this transformation architecting, how it helps in business?
Absolutely. So after about 5 years of being a consultant, I had this entrepreneurial itch that was unbearable. My parents were entrepreneurs. They left India in the late 70s and landed in the Philippines with practically nothing. And they began their entrepreneurial journey at that point. So entrepreneurship has been in my DNA, right? So after 5 years of being a consultant, I decided that I was going to move to Dubai to start my first company. And since then, I've started and invested in several companies. I love entrepreneurship. The idea of creating something from absolutely nothing is very exciting, right? So now, as a transformation architect and a business coach, I work. My work is solely focused on entrepreneurs. Now, as an entrepreneur that's turned transformation coach, when you're scaling your business. So entrepreneurs would know when they're scaling their business, no matter how hard they work, it seems like it's never enough, right? They're constantly stressed, they're anxious. I'm sure entrepreneurs, they're constantly stressed, they're anxious, they're overwhelmed. They feel this deep in the pit of their stomach, right? And they keep ruminating the same decisions over and over, drowning in regret. And they're making decisions in their business at the expense of their family, at the expense of their health, at the expense of their humanity. And it's not that they don't spend time with their family. They're physically present, but they're actually not really in the moment. So their energy is completely drained. And and while they're doing this, while this is happening, they're watching their competitors scale past them, right? So what I've realized is that for entrepreneurs to be really successful in playing the outer game of success, pricing, market share, going into a new market, right? It's important that they master the inner game mindset first. So the inner game is all about your mindset, your emotions, your body, right? So as an entrepreneur for the last 20 years, I've mapped this terrain and I've developed a journey with powerful interventions and tools. And I've developed a system called the Superhuman Journey, where I align the inner game. So I'm often asked by entrepreneurs and CEOs, Why do I need to work on limiting beliefs? Why? Right? Why do I need to work on unprocessed emotions or overcoming anxiety or self-doubt or my energy and emotional regulation? Why? Right? So to which I tell them that the ultimate bottom line in your business is your essence and your energy, right? They're the core pillars of the business strategy. And I know this because I've observed this in entrepreneurs that I work with. Not only that, but in my own personal journey as an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs can have a successful growing business without really hitting burnout or losing yourself in the process. So that's what I do as an entrepreneur and transformation architect. I basically have experienced firsthand and through my clients that the main driver to the business's the suboptimal performance of their business, or in some cases, failure of the business altogether, it's not because they had the wrong strategy or the wrong corporate culture or any market-driven force for that matter. While all those are critical, they're not as vital as the mindset of the entrepreneur and the CEO. So that's what I do as a transformation architect is I plan, design, and oversee transformation by working on the inner game.
That word itself is very catchy, like transformation architect.
Thank you. I gave myself that moniker. Coach, the word coach is quite overused, and there are a lot of coaches out there, and they all serve a purpose. But I wanted to differentiate myself in a way that really resonated with what I did or what I do, which is really all about transformation, sustainable transformation.
Okay, that's amazing thing. And Dhiren, as everyone knows, like entrepreneurship is full of hurdles, full of ups and downs. And you already told us you started from nothing. So how did you cope up with all the hurdles coming your way?
That's a great question. So coping is really all about, let me put this in the context of inner game, outer game. We'll be talking about that quite a bit, right? So the outer game is all about challenges and hurdles, right? And problems. And the real challenge really that we face or that entrepreneurs face is not really with the circumstance, but it's how we react to the circumstance. Oftentimes we're not responding, we're reacting. Right. So let me give you an example. So I have a client that I'm working with. He's an entrepreneur, and he had this really deep fear of losing his business. Right. And this fear prevented him from taking risks. And it also, prevented him from being creative. Like his creativity was diminished as a result of this. So I took him to a space that allowed him to dissipate the fear, where I said to him that, this is basically the line I said. So if I told you that you're going to lose your business, now I don't want that for you, right? I told him I don't want that for you, but I'm introducing it as a possibility in the realm of possibilities, right? Could you be okay with that? Again, I'm not saying that that's what I want for you. I'm not saying that's what you want, right? But could you find a sense of acceptance that that might happen? And it took him a few minutes, right, to sit with it. And I could tell that he was getting very uncomfortable because obviously every cell, every fiber in his body was rejecting the idea, right? Every cell in his body was probably screaming, no, I don't want that. Right? That's terrible. But then he got to this space psychologically where he started saying things like, yeah, I guess I could be okay with that, right? If I lose my business, I could start another one. My kids will be okay. My family are going to be okay. I won't die. I'll still have my health. I could start another one. And it was at that moment, at that precise moment, that he discovered freedom. He discovered how to cope. Because the fear, right, that he felt that he may lose his business, it became now his perceived reality. His reality was distorted at that moment, right? He started thinking he started living with that lens that he may lose his business. Now, the fear is that it may happen, right? That's what we go through. Whatever the circumstances, that may happen. This may happen. In his case, I may lose my business. And so by actually clearing the future for him, right, and being okay with what he could call the worst case scenario of losing his business, then he found himself in a space where he had nothing left to fear. So coping became easy because he already integrated and rationalized whatever it is that he previously was concerned about. So what happened next, over the next 2 years, he tripled his revenue while still maintaining his profitability, his level of his EBITDA. So because he was now at peace with whether that happened or not, he was no longer in the fight over trying to overcome a story that he was, that he was telling himself, which is that he may lose his business. So he was back at neutral, clean slate, new day. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. That approach, that mindset opens up new possibilities.
So that basically like coming up above the fear of failure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And accepting it as worst case, whatever that worst case is. What happens if you embrace it? Like so instead of resisting it, what if you embrace it and say, okay, it's happened. It's going to happen. And once you integrate and rationalize that, then it opens up all these possibilities.
So it's our reaction to the circumstances.
Absolutely. Because, emotions, especially fear is a cutting edge emotion. It gives us a lot of feedback. So to him, it was giving him feedback that he needed to, emotions and circumstances, I should say circumstances, come to our life to teach us something. It points out where we need to evolve, where we need to grow, right? And that's what that emotion or that circumstance was teaching him. Because now it's not that he doesn't experience fear, he does, but how he responds. So it's not the circumstance, it's how you respond to the emotion that the circumstance creates. So in his case, his relationship to fear has changed.
So nicely explained, Dhiren. You wrote a book named Your Dose of Motivation. So what was that real idea or motivation behind that book?
Yeah, so the book was, we all go through that moment in life where we feel something's missing, right? Where we think this can't be all there is to life. It can't just be about school, career, marriage, business, holidays, raising kids, retirement, right? It can't be just about that, right? So these are all external experiences, right? There had to be something deeper, a deeper meaning to life, right? So I started asking myself that question at a fairly young age. And I grew up in an environment where, my family and close friends were quite spiritually inclined. So spirituality was already in my awareness and programmed in me from my formative years. And so, I got to a point wherein, I started getting into this very dark night moment or dark night of the soul. It's called dark night of the soul phase, right? And so the dark night basically symbolizes a shadow, right? And the shadow of the soul usually refers to the individual's true essence, right? So it really all started when, I made that the first card in my house of cards fell, which was around jumping on a plane to chase a business deal, right? Instead of being with my wife who was 9 months pregnant, right? So it all started with that. And what followed were a series of decisions that really had a material impact on my relationships. I wasn't clear on what my priorities were, right? and my health started suffering, right? So, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I was completely misaligned, right? And so in this book, I talk about the habits that really saved me. So that's what the book is about. It's the habits that saved me. I'm in the process of writing a second book that goes deep into transformation and the
Oh,
principles of spirituality, mindset, and energy. What I call the inner game. And yeah, so that should be out early next year.
oh, that's great. Dhiren, as far this conversation, we came to know you are a multitasking personality. You are an author, you are an entrepreneur, you are a transformation architect, so many things you do in your life. So, what is like one role or one mission in your life you have?
Yeah, Sneha, I feel like we're moving to a phase now in history where, wherein we're all going to have to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So I don't call it my mission, I call it my why. And my why is basically really centered around entrepreneurs. So I joke, I say that, if there was a teacher, a civil servant, a politician, a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, all the different professions you can think of, and an entrepreneur, and I could only save one of them, right? Let's say I was in a boat, whatever the situation is. If I could only save one, I would save the entrepreneur, because I believe that the entrepreneur can recreate civilization, right? That's what an entrepreneur does, right? So
That's so nice definition of an entrepreneur.
yeah, so my why is really about,
Visualization.
yeah, so I believe a business can be a profound force for good in our societies, our communities, our cities, and the world. And this force for good starts and ends with the entrepreneur who takes a balanced approach between profit and lifestyle. So my approach in terms of the inner game and transformation will serve as the foundation for our future generation to live healthier and more fulfilling lives. Because at the moment, with the current paradigm, entrepreneurs are getting burnt out. And we need more of them. So if we don't support them and create a platform for them to thrive and be able to, be able to dance between the outer game and the inner game, which is really, a balance that they need to be able to find, then we would lose them in the journey of entrepreneurship. And we need more entrepreneurs, right? That's the new reality. That's the future we're going into.
That's so nice. During our show works with World Humanitarian Foundation, which works towards women empowerment. So, what are your views regarding the women around the globe?
Women around the globe. Um, so I believe women, I've always said this, uh, I believe women are the stronger gender. There's no doubt in my mind, right? There's a reason why women were picked uh, for so many other things, for so many things that men are not capable of doing inherently, I think. So I believe it's very challenging to be a woman. And I think gender equality is something that we really need to put under the spotlight and really discuss. Because I think when we have gender equality, it prevents a lot of violence against women and girls, and it's essential for economic prosperity. So I think societies, I read an article recently that said that societies that value women and men as equal are safer and healthier, right? So I think gender equality is paramount. And I think it also leads to peace, and children are healthier as a result of that. It helps businesses, it's great for the economy. So I think, it serves society at large. But more importantly, we should have gender equality. Why not? I mean, men and women are equal in every measure.
Okay. What advice would you like to give to our young entrepreneurs, like as a successful businessman?
Okay. To young entrepreneurs, I would say that don't get discouraged with failure, right? Uh, my mentor always says that you have to try 5 things to find the one thing that works. And entrepreneurship is all about experimentation. That's what it's about. You have to keep experimenting. And when you find the one thing that works, understand how it can generalize to the next level and the next level and the level after that, right? So keep experimenting. I would also say be likable. And I don't mean likable to get approval. I mean true likability. And I think it's only possible to be likable when you have a deep understanding of yourself. So know thyself and and find, you know, what you're truly passionate about, right? The challenge is that most people don't know what they want, right? So for entrepreneurs, I would say, understand the why behind why you're doing what you're doing, right? Why do you want what you want? Or firstly, what is it that you want?
What they
And
want and why they want.
yeah.
So that's a great message for all our youth watching this show. Dhiren, our shows says success stories. So we would love to know, like, what is your true definition of success?
My true definition of success, I would say it's all about, so success, if you get it from the external sense, right? External success is really, it's perpetual, right? It's infinite. And it subjects us to, the yo-yo of external pursuits, right? So oftentimes we attach our identity to external success or external measures of success. But if you get your identity from your sincerity, your integrity, your genuine desire to add value, basically all things that are self-generated and self-maintained, then you'll be truly proud of yourself, right? And I think that kind of success brings reliable happiness that you can count on, that comes from within, right? So that's the first definition for me. Is it's really all about internal success, and it goes back to the inner game of really knowing yourself and what you want and why you do what you do, right? So that's the first definition for me. The second is, I truly believe success is a habit, right? What stops most people from being successful is not having rituals and habits that they have seen, successful people before them have as part of their routine. So really, you don't even have to reinvent the wheel, right? You just study these people who have been successful, not just externally, but internally in all domains, from sports to, to philosophy, to business, right? And you'll find the same habits. A common denominator among all of them is that they share all the same habits. So that's the second thing that I would say. But Sneha, success on the axis is an infinite game, right? So it really comes down to, again, I've been thinking a lot about this. We talk about quality of life. Have you heard of that? Quality of life, right? So I've been playing with this concept. You know how we talk about quality of life, which is really part of the external world, right? It's the house, how long your commute is to work, right? The holidays, the amount of time we get to spend with our family, our social connections, right? It's all about, again, the outer game, right?
Okay.
But by playing the outer game well, right, we get rewarded with a high quality of life, right? But what about the mind, the body, the emotions? What determines our confidence level? How do you feel and think about yourself, your self-esteem, right? this determines your quality of state. So I think the inner version of quality of life is quality of state. And I believe that quality of life is preceded by quality of state. So if you have a high quality of state, right, I would assert that you would end up winning the outer game quality of life, right? So we first need to win the inner game.
Inner game, yeah. That's basically, we should be strong from inside, then only we can face the outer world. Like we can face the failures, we can face the success, and we can be the neutral with all the things.
Absolutely.
Dhiren, like I would like to add up one thing from my side. I have recently read a book like How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. So, like your sayings are very much similar to that book which I have read.
Beautiful.
That was by Dale Currency. That's an old. I have read that recent edition, but almost it was the same.
That's a great book. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So, Dhiren, that's all for our show. I will just end up with the ending thing. Thank you so much, Dhiren, and it was a pleasure to have you with us in our show. Stay tuned, everyone, for more success stories coming up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And don't forget to subscribe our channel. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye. That's all.
Thanks.